What if this plain glass bottle could become the prettiest piece in the entire room, with soft pink roses, glowing lights, and a lounging cow surrounded by glam details? This project feels like stepping into a dreamy vintage fairy tale. And wait until you see how all these air dry clay embellishments completely transform it. Hello, my crafty friends. I'm Donna from Mason Creations, etc. And welcome to my channel. If you're ready, my friends, let's make a mess. I love the shape of this bottle, and I've used them in several projects, but this project is going to take the cake. I'm going to add a lot of glam. You can get these bottles at Hobby Lobby. The first thing I'm doing is wiping it with alcohol to remove any dirt or fingerprints. I'm going to brush on a coat of Polyvine multi-surface lacquer in the dead flat finish on just the back, sides, and neck of the bottle. It's formulated to create a bond on slick, non-porous surfaces. That bond works as a gripping layer for paints and decoupage glue that stops scratching and peeling. I'm not putting it on the front because I want that part of the glass to remain clear and see-through. I'll let this dry overnight for best results. This rice paper just makes me laugh. I love this cow. I'm removing the images I'm going to use in my project. I'm using this larger one to show through the bottle and a smaller one for the back. This is a reverse decoupage project, so I'll be doing all my decoupaging on the back of the bottle. I'm using a water brush to remove all the white factory edges. A water brush has a cartridge that you fill with water and then brush it on the napkin or rice paper. The water dispenses easily, so this is really convenient. You always want to tear your rice paper or napkin instead of cutting it. A torn edge is much easier to blend than a sharp cut edge. I did use scissors on that one lined edge, and you'll see why in just a few minutes. I'm decoupaging that strip that I cut off at the top of the bottle on the back, right side down so it shows through the front. I'm using Polyvine Heavy Duty Varnish in a satin finish as my decoupage glue today. You can use this product as a decoupage glue, as well as your final varnish. It dries crystal clear and will not yellow. Dry to the touch in less than an hour, and completely cured in less than a week. This and all the products you're going to see me use today came from decoupagenapkins.com, my wonderful sponsors. I'm laying down my cow paper on the bottle and rounding off edges so it conforms to the round shape of the bottle. Wait until you see what I'm going to do to this paper before I decoupage it. Where are you all watching from, my crafty friends? Let me know in the comments. I just love to see what cities and countries all my friends are watching from. I'm filming from sunny Las Vegas, Nevada in the United States. I'm using Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color cotton to paint the back of that rice paper strip at the top of the bottle. Rice paper is very translucent. Anything that I do behind it will show through to the other side. I'll be decoupaging the cow paper just slightly over top of it, so it needs to be painted white. I made sure not to go over that little black line with my paint. If I did, it would block out a portion of the cow picture from the other side. This is reverse decoupage, so everything is reversed. I'm doing first what normally would be done last. Because this is reverse decoupage and this picture isn't large enough to cover the entire back of the bottle, I had to get creative. I won't be able to do any paint blending on the paper edges, so I'm going to make the edges pretty. How many of you out there have ever done any embossing? Let me know in the comments section. I'm putting embossing ink around the edges of the paper, just the sides and bottom. It's clear and there is no wait time to dry. Then I'm going to sprinkle embossing powder over the edges in the color Princess Gold. How fitting, that cow looks like she thinks she's a princess. Make sure you do this over paper so you can put all the excess back in the jar. I dumped off the excess and then I'll be brushing off some of it with a fan brush. It's on there pretty heavy and that's not what I'm looking for. I want it to be subtle. After I brushed off some of it, I held the paper over my trash can and blew on it to make sure there wasn't any residue powder anywhere but the edges. It's really not very messy, Shirley. I'm sure you're wondering about that. I'm going to use a heat gun to melt the powder into a shimmering gold, fit for a princess. I'm heating it until you can see it melt and turn a shiny gold. Make sure you don't touch it until it cools off or it will smear. I tried a blow dryer and it just blew everything around in my studio, so I don't suggest a blow dryer. Because you're watching this video today, decoupagenapkins.com is going to give you a 10% discount on one order that's a minimum of at least $50. This is a one-time discount and is good on your entire order when you use the code MASON10 in all caps at checkout. So now you can get that mold you've been eyeing or some additional rice papers you've been wanting. Even if you've been ordering from them in the past, you can still take advantage of this one-time 10% discount when using the code above. I'll leave all this information for you in my description box below. To find my description box, click on the word more just below the title of this video. I'm going to add this adorable cow paper to the back of the bottle now. I'm laying it on the bottle face side down and putting just the very edge of the top over my white paint, maybe 1/8 of an inch overlap. Once I got the picture exactly where I wanted it, I didn't want to take a chance of it moving, so I just added my varnish right over the image. The paper is porous enough that it will seep right through the paper and adhere my image to the glass. I am making sure to saturate it. Then I misted a piece of a cut-up Ziploc bag with some water and laid it over top of my decoupaged cute cow. I'm rubbing out any wrinkles or air bubbles using a paper towel, then carefully lifting up the plastic. And then I'll let that dry for about an hour. I'm going to be painting the back of this image with some white paint. To make sure no paint seeps through the paper, I sealed it one more time with my varnish. And then I'll let that dry for about an hour. Because the cow image wasn't big enough to cover the entire half of this bottle, I had to figure out something to take up the additional space, so I added some additional paper. Something subtle enough that it didn't take away from the adorable cow though. I painted the back of the cow paper white so nothing would show through to the front of the bottle. I was very careful not to go over the edges of the paper with my paint. If any gets on the glass, it'll block out the image of the next paper. And then I let this dry for about 30 minutes. I'm using a simple white paper that has script on it. This is subtle and won't distract from the princess cow. I already pre-tore it to the rounded shape of the bottle. I'm doing the same thing with this one, getting it in place and adding the varnish over top of the paper so it won't move. I put little tears on both sides of the paper so it would be able to wrap around the curved side of the bottle. These pieces will overlap and lay down flat instead of causing a big wrinkle. And then I'll let that dry for about an hour. Now I'm going to paint the entire back white, covering just the paper. This way, none of the paper is transparent because it has a white backing. I'm making sure not to go over the paper edge onto the clear glass in front. How about a cow just hanging out in the bathtub? These cow pictures just crack me up. This one is going on the back in the center. I'm using my favorite, DOS clay, to make some embellishments for this project. DOS clay is so easy to work with, dries quickly, and has very little shrinkage or cracking when dry. It's perfect for making molded pieces. I'm going to make some roses, leaves, bows, and little makeup details to go all around and frame the bottle. After pressing the clay into the mold, I'm scraping off the excess with my palette knife. Now I'm smoothing the clay out with some water. Then I'll put them in the freezer for 20 minutes. Freezing the clay makes it rigid, so they just pop out of the mold easily. No fragile pieces will break off. Fresh out of the freezer, watch how easily these just pop out of the molds. No delicate little pieces will break off. They are frozen solids, so I'll need to let them thaw for a few minutes, but not in the mold. Make sure you remove them from the mold right away as soon as you take them out of the freezer. While they're thawing, I take that time to smooth out the edges and remove any little pieces of clay that shouldn't be there. While they're still somewhat frozen is a great time to do this. They're still hard, so touching them won't destroy all that beautiful detail. They do thaw quickly and will be ready to glue to your project within a few minutes. I'm going to use Aleene's tacky glue to add my molded clay to my piece. I need to add this while the clay is still wet so it'll conform to the piece as it dries. This is the best glue I've found for attaching wet clay. If any glue seeps out from under the clay, I'm removing it right away with a clean, damp brush. I'm also pressing down all the edges of the clay very delicately to make sure they're all connecting with the piece. I put some glue on the back of a silicone mold and I'm using a silicone makeup brush to apply it to the clay pieces. This works so well because the glue comes off the silicone easily. I'm placing the clay roses over the paper's edge where it meets the glass. This will hide all those edges. Wait until you see what I'm going to be adding in a little bit to further hide any edges that show. I had to use a towel over my cup cradle to prop the bottle up a little bit. The larger clay flowers are a little heavy and slide around, so I put a little painter's tape on the bottom rose to hold it in place. I pressed it onto the glass and very lightly draped it over the clay. This way you won't destroy the details in the clay. Because I'm adding the clay while it's still wet, I'm able to overlap the roses and leaves and they dry exactly the way I put them on there. I did one side of the bottle and then had to let that side dry overnight before I could turn it over to do the other side. Then I let the entire front side dry overnight before I flipped it over to do the back. And then I let that dry overnight too. DecoupageNapkins.com has an amazing selection of napkins, and the best part is that you can purchase them individually. They carry a wide range of craft supplies, including rice paper, paints, clay, molds, and an excellent selection of polyvine products. With thousands of items available and new products being added regularly, it's truly a one-stop shop for crafters. Orders are carefully packed and shipped quickly. You'll earn bonus points on orders over $100. Additional offers may vary and are often seasonal, so be sure to check their website. You'll find any promotions displayed in a banner at the top of their homepage. Subscribe to their newsletter by entering your email address to receive 10% off your next order. This discount is separate from the Mason 10 code and may be used on an additional purchase. I'll leave links to all the products I use in the description box below. Please note that all offers are subject to change. To find my description box, click on the word more below the title of this video. Bear with me, my friends. My camera broke and I had to go buy a new one to be able to finish this video. I know it's filming really bright and I'm trying to get it adjusted. So please be patient and hang in there with me. I didn't have the exact shade of pink that I wanted. So I mixed one using a couple of different shades of pink as well as some white to lighten it up. I'm using this color for just the roses. The pink looks a little off right now, but once I add a few little techniques, they'll go nicely with the paper. Any of the products I use in my videos are wonderful products that I personally believe in, so you can bet that each one is a great product. Everything I use will be listed in my description box below. Each one will have a blue link, so they're easy for you to find. Any links I provide are safe for you to click on. To find my description box, click on the word "More" just below the title of this video. I'm using Pentart paint in the color Country Green for all the leaves. I'm trying really hard not to get any paint on the glass. It will scrape off with a toothpick, but I don't want a huge mess to clean up later. I'm painting all of the bows and some of the makeup details white. Some gold on all the little makeup pieces and red for the lipstick. I'm painting everything on the back of the bottle and around the neck gold, except the bow. I've already painted that white. Wait until you see how I make all the white bows look like satin. The clay details around the cow picture are going to stay gold. I'm going to be doing a crackle technique on the back of the bottle. The base color that you paint is the color that will show through the cracks. I just want to take a moment, all of my crafty friends, to say thank you for watching this video. If you're enjoying the content, it would be great if you could take a quick second and hit the like and hype buttons. I appreciate you for doing that. I have some awesome new projects coming up, so don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you paint the neck of the bottle white before adding the gold. The metallic paint needs that base coat on glass. And then I let this dry for about 30 minutes. I'm going to use Folk Art one-step crackle medium. There are many different crackle mediums, but mostly they either go over top of your image and crack, or they go between two layers of paint. This crackle medium will go between two layers of paint. The gold is my base color, and now I'm adding the crackle medium. The next layer of paint will be the one that cracks, and the gold will show through all the cracks. And then I'll let that dry for about an hour. Okay, here we go. Let's crackle. I'm adding white chalk paint over the crackle medium. It's going to start cracking the paint immediately. Try not to go over an area that you've already added the paint. What you think is a place that you missed might be a crack forming. Whenever I do a reverse decoupage bottle or plate, I like to add some sort of texture on the back so you can't see where the decoupage paper has been added. After this dried in a couple hours, I gave the entire bottle a coat of varnish, being careful not to get any on the clear glass on the front of the bottle, and then I let that dry for an hour. I'm using glazing medium to create a custom antique color for this project. I'm going to mix it with Pentart paint in the color hazelnut. I don't want the antique to be too dark. I put about a teaspoon of medium in a small paper cup and added just a tiny bit of paint, but it turned out to be not quite dark enough, so I added a small amount of Folk Art pre-mixed antiquing medium in the color Wooden Bucket Brown. This combination made a nice color antique. I'm brushing my antique on the piece, going over and around all the embellishments. I'm doing this in sections and wiping the antique off with a soft, dry cloth right away before it can dry. Because of the gloss finish, it will wipe off the surface and stay in all the cracks and crevices, showing the details of the mold. Antiquing gives your embellishments some depth and dimension, making everything look 3D instead of flat. What a difference it makes. Everything just comes to life now. The glazing medium prolongs the drying time of the paint. This way you have a longer working window. Before you apply any antiquing, you need to have a satin or gloss finish. This will allow you to wipe the antique off the surface, and it will remain in all the cracks and crevices. Without a shine on the surface, the antique will grab onto the bare paint, and you won't be able to wipe any of it off. You can mix the glazing medium with any color paint to make antique. This allows you to get really creative with your projects. I'm using a Q-tip to get into any tight areas. This is water-based, so after it dries, you'll be able to remove any unwanted antique from the glass easily with some window cleaner. Just look at the difference between the roses that have the antiquing and the ones that do not. The antique adds so much life, but wait until you see some other techniques I'm going to add to the roses that will make them look even more alive. And I'll let this dry for a couple hours. Once dry, I flipped it over and added my antique to the back of the bottle. I added it over top of the bow and the gold details. I also made sure to get around the gold details as well as inside the circle between the cow picture and the clay. And I let this dry for another couple hours as well. I put a little fuchsia paint in a small paper cup and mixed it with some water to thin it out. I'm going to brush it in the centers of the roses. This is part of what's going to make them look more lifelike. I'm just putting it here and there to give a little color change, and definitely not full coverage. I want it to look spotty. I'm going to let that dry for just a few minutes, and then I'll add some highlights to really add life to those roses. These roses look pretty good right now, but just wait. They're about to get even better. I'm going to dry brush some white paint on all my clay embellishments to get some beautiful highlights. Other than the lipstick, I left that pure red and the gold details on the back. I'm dipping just the tip of my brush into the paint. I'm wiping off most of it on the side of the paint jar. Then wipe even more of it off on a paper towel. You want your brush almost completely dry to get the proper effect. I'm skimming just the tip of my brush across the high points on the embellishment. You don't want the paint to go into any of the cracks or crevices, just lightly across the top. Now to give them that satiny look, I'm brushing all the bows and any of the white on the little makeup details with Dixie Belle pearlescent glaze. And this stuff is just gorgeous. I'm not sure if the camera is going to capture the real beauty of this, but it gives an iridescent pearl glow wherever you put it, and it's making the bows look like satin. I put 2 coats of this on, waiting about 15 minutes between coats. It dries pretty fast. I'm using my Polyvine Heavy Duty Varnish to give the entire bottle its final coat of sealer. I'm being careful again not to get any of the varnish on the clear glass. That won't come off as easily as the paint and antique. I actually gave it 2 coats, waiting an hour between each coat. The 2 coats gave it a deeper, flawless shine, which I just love. And by the way, this varnish is water-based, so there is no smell or harmful fumes. If you've been using Polyvine products, you're going to notice that they've changed all the labels and some of the product names. The heavy-duty wood varnish is now heavy-duty varnish, and the heavy-duty extreme varnish is now exterior extreme varnish. I hope you love and enjoy these products as much as I do. Okay, friends, now is where all the sparkles come in. I'm using diamond dots in the color 7007. These are meant for diamond paintings, but I use them a lot in my projects. This color is a clear rhinestone on one side and gold on the other. When you put them down, you get a mixture of gold and clear sparkle, and I'm just going to pour them on there. I'm going to use my Polyvine varnish as a glue to adhere these little beauties to the bottle. When glue dries, it has a slight milky matte appearance. This is going to dry crystal clear and you'll never see it at all. The only thing you'll see is some awesome sparkle. I'm using a paintbrush to drip the varnish where I want the dots to go, and then I'm just pouring them on the varnish. Make sure you do this on paper so you can pour the excess back into the little jar. These can really jazz up your projects. I'm using this to cover any of the paper edges that still might be showing. Or maybe it's just because I love sparkle. I put them in some large empty spaces between the roses and leaves. I also put some against the clay pieces right on the glass. In most of my videos, you'll see me using a lot of different tools that make life so much easier. Things like a turquoise cup cradle to keep round objects from getting away, a bodabra that makes bows in a snap, a water brush for separating rice paper and napkins, small art brushes for fine detail work, palette knives, and a rhinestone picker. If you're interested in checking out any of these items, you can find them listed in my description box below, in my favorite tools section. To find my description box, click on the word more just below the title of this video. And then I'll let that dry for about an hour. I put literally about 2 drops of varnish in a little cup and added some extra fine gold glitter. Since the glitter is mixed with the varnish, later when it dries it won't fall off. This is a great way to add glitter on your projects. I'm using it to paint some of the gold details on the makeup containers. Don't forget, all of the wonderful products I'm using today can be found at my favorite place for craft supplies, decoupagenapkins.com, and I'll leave you links in my description box below. I took a plain light-up bottle cork and decorated it to match the bottle. Here's what it looked like before I started. It opens up so you can charge it using a USB port. I put 5 small roses around the cork portion with a large rose on the very top. Then I added some of the same trim that's on the back of the bottle on the white plastic area. I painted and antiqued everything just exactly like the bottle and added some of the diamond dots as well for the same sparkle. If you enjoyed this video, I have a playlist where you can find a lot of other mixed media projects. Click the picture on the right to watch some other projects you may enjoy. Thanks for watching, and if you don't want to miss any new projects, you can subscribe by clicking my picture in the top right corner.